Have you ever
All
thought
right,
about
today we're
spiritual
jumping
change?
into a really
A lot of us see
powerful
it as
idea from a
something,
devotional
well,
text
private,
called
right?
The
Something that just
Excellence of the
happens
New Man in
inside of us.
Christ. So
But
what
what
does
if
it
that's only
really
half
mean
the
to be
story?
transformed?
What if
Let's
that
dive in
inner
and find
change
out.
was always meant to spill out
So
and have a
the
real
text we're digging
tangible
into
impact
today,
on the world
it
around
starts
us?
right off with this really
Today we're going to dig
powerful
into this
verse.
powerful idea
And this verse,
from a
it sets
devotional
the stage
text
for
that
everything
what's
we're about
happening
to
on the
unpack.
inside is
It's
designed
all
to
about
produce
this core
a visible,
idea of the
positive
new
force for
man.
change out
So that
there.
brings up the big
Let's
question,
get
right?
into it.
What does it
And really,
actually mean to
everything
be
we're
a
about to
new
explore
man?
is
You've
grounded
probably
in
heard
this
that term
one
before,
powerful
but the
idea.
devotional we're looking
The
at
part
gives
that
it a
really
really
jumps out is
specific,
that they may
really
see
deep
your good
meaning.
works.
Let's get into the
See?
first big idea.
This isn't about some hidden private
first things
feeling.
first.
It's
The
about something that
devotional makes it
shines,
super
something
clear
people can
that this
actually
whole
observe,
new
that
man
leads to a
thing,
very
it's
specific
way more
outcome.
than just being
This
forgiven
single
for your
verse really
mistakes.
sets the
It's
stage
not
for a
about just
pretty
wiping
radical
the
way of
slate
thinking about
clean.
our impact.
No, it's talking about
so
a
what
complete,
exactly
fundamental
are these good works
change.
it's talking about?
And to
Well,
really
the
wrap our
text
heads
we're
around
looking at
this,
gives them
we've
a
got to
very
look at how the
specific
text
name.
defines
It
being
calls
born
them
again.
fruits.
See, it's
So
not
let's
just
break
about
down
getting a
what that
second
really
chance to
means.
do better. The
And there
idea
it
here
is,
is
right
that you're
in
being
Philippians,
totally
the fruits
recreated,
of
like
righteousness.
from the ground
Now,
up,
this
with a
isn't just
brand
some
new
poetic
nature.
phrase. It's
And
a
this
huge
right here,
concept.
this is a
It
huge
suggests
distinction.
that righteousness
The text
isn't
is
just a
basically
status
saying,
you hold,
look,
but it's
you're
something
not
that
just an
produces a
upgraded
harvest,
version of your old
something
self.
you are
No
literally
way.
filled
You're presented
with.
as something completely
So,
new, a
what
brand
does
new
that
creature.
mean in simple
It's kind of like the
terms?
difference
The
between gluing a
definition
broken
is
vase back
crystal
together
clear.
and creating a
These
brand new,
fruits are the
flawless one from
visible
scratch.
expressions of a new
Okay,
life.
so if you're
In
this
other
new
words, they're
creation,
the outward
what does that even
evidence,
look
the
like in
proof, really,
practice?
that an
Well, the
inward
devotional
change
uses
has
some really
actually
specific,
happened.
almost
It's the
absolute
effect that
language
makes
to
the
describe
cause
this new
visible
identity.
to the world.
Let's take a look at
And
what it
this isn't
says.
just some abstract
It's not
idea.
just making
The
this
text
claim on
gives
its
us
own.
concrete
The
examples,
text points to this
tangible
powerful
acts
verse
of
to
love,
back it up,
a life
saying
of
that
purity,
from God's
a standard
perspective,
of excellence,
this new
and the
person
presence
is,
of peace
well,
and truth.
flawless. You
These
get
are the
this.
things people can
It's not
actually
presented as
see
some
and
goal you have to
experience.
work towards.
But
It's talked about as
how
a
do these
present
things
tense
even come
reality,
about?
right from the
Okay,
moment of that
so
transformation.
we know what
So yeah,
these fruits are.
these words,
But the next question
holy,
is probably the most
unblameable,
important one.
unreproveable,
How
they're
are they
absolutely
produced?
key.
This
The
is where the text
devotional
makes
really
a
hammers
really
home the
crucial
point that
distinction.
these aren't things you're
So here's the
trying
core
to
argument,
achieve.
and
They're
it's kind of a
described
game
as
changer.
built-in qualities
Producing
of
these
this new
fruits isn't
identity.
supposed to be a
It's a
constant
shift
struggle.
from what I'm trying
You know,
to
that
become
white-knuckled effort
to
to
who
do
I
the
now
right
am.
thing.
Naturally,
Instead,
this
it's meant
leads
to
to the
be a
big
natural
why
expression,
question, right?
something
Why
that
go
flows
through all
almost
this? What's the
effortlessly
point
from
of this
who
new
you've become.
creation? And you know
This
what?
is the
The
analogy
text
that
is
just
super
makes
clear
the
that there's a
whole
very
idea click.
specific
Think
purpose
about an
behind it
orange
all.
tree. It
But
doesn't
before we
strain
get to the
produce
purpose,
oranges.
the
It
devotional
just
pauses on
does,
one specific
because
word,
that's its
handiwork.
nature.
And
The
this is
text
important.
applies this
It doesn't just
exact same
mean
logic
something
to a
that was
person of
made.
faith.
It's more
The
like
good
being
works
a
are simply the
masterpiece, you
natural,
know? Something
expected
personally
outcome
and
of a new
skillfully
nature.
crafted, like a
So
work of
the
art
crucial
with a
takeaway
very
here
specific
is that the
design and
focus is on
function.
the nature
And
of
then
the
this
tree,
verse just
not
drives
its
that
effort.
whole idea home.
The fruit
We're
isn't a
told this
goal to
new
be achieved.
creation, this
It's simply
handiwork,
the
is
byproduct of its
specifically
identity.
designed for a purpose.
And that
It's about
completely
walking out a
shifts the
good
perspective
life
from
that,
trying
according to this
to being.
passage, has already
So we
been
have
mapped
this
out
inner
for you.
reality and
And
its
then another
natural
verse
outward
comes in and
expression.
builds on that.
But let's
It
connect
says
this back
the
to the
whole
very
point is
beginning.
to,
What's
well,
the
to
ultimate
show
purpose?
off the
Why is it
wonderful
so
deeds and
important that this light
virtues of the
shines?
one who did the
And
calling.
here's the why.
So in other words,
This
the life
righteousness
of this
was never
new
meant
man
to be a
is meant
purely
to be a kind
personal
of
possession.
showcase,
Its purpose is
reflecting the
fundamentally
excellence of its
outward-facing.
creator.
It's designed to
Okay,
be
that's a
demonstrated
lot of big
through
picture stuff.
you,
But
for the
how does
benefit
this
of the
actually
world.
translate to our
This
everyday
brings
lives?
us to the real-world
The devotional
application.
argues it should
What does this
totally
demonstration of
revolutionize your
righteousness
mindset,
actually look
especially
like?
when you
What
think
is it
about your own
supposed to
potential
accomplish out
and how
there?
you deal with challenges.
And this is the
And this
intended
leads to a
impact.
really direct
We're moving
call to
beyond
action.
personal
The text
attributes
says,
like purity and
because of
love
this new
to
identity,
world-changing
you
forces.
should refuse to
Things like
accept things like
justice,
weakness
integrity,
or failure
peace,
as just
healing, and
normal.
salvation.
And why?
The idea is
Because
that your
they just
life
don't
becomes
line
a
up with
channel,
this new
bringing
nature.
these
It's a
powerful,
call
positive
for a
forces into
mindset
the
of
world.
active, conscious
This
refusal.
progression really
Now,
summarizes
what's interesting
the
is that
entire
this isn't
idea.
framed as some
It starts with your
exhausting
identity
uphill
as
battle.
a living testimony.
It's presented more as a
From that
reality
identity, your
that you
life
just need to
naturally
embrace.
radiates
The logic
goodness
is,
and excellence.
hey,
And the
everything you
final
need
result?
for this life life of godliness
tangible
and
impact
excellence.
on the world
You've
around you.
already been given
It's a simple yet
It's like you've been
incredibly
fully equipped
powerful
from day
flow.
one.
Ultimately,
Okay, so the
takeaway
million-dollar
is this.
question, how do you
are
actually
filled
live
with
this
these
out?
fruits of
How do you
righteousness
walk in
for
this
a
new
dual
identity?
purpose.
Well,
First,
the
to reveal
devotional
a
finishes
divine
up with a
nature
really
to the world.
practical,
And second,
step-by-step
just
guide
like we
on
saw
how to
in the very
apply
first
all
slide,
this knowledge
to
to your
bring
daily
glory
life.
to God. It's
It
a
really
purpose that
boils
is
down
both
to this
personal
clear
and
three-step
public.
process.
And that leaves
Step
us
one
with
is
a
all about your
final
mind.
personal
You've got to
question.
consciously
If this
focus
is
on the
true,
truth of this
the
new
focus
identity.
shifts
Step
entirely
two
from
is about
striving
your
and
will.
effort
You
to simply
actively
allowing
refuse
what's
thoughts
already
and
inside
actions
to
that don't
flow
match
out.
up with it.
The
And
question
finally,
is no
step
longer
three is
if you
about
can
your
have an
actions.
impact,
You go
but
out
what
and
kind of
actively
impact will you
display that
choose
new
to have?
nature. And the
How
big
will you let
takeaway
this
here is that
natural
this whole
expression
thing
of who
isn't
you are
presented as a bunch
change
of
the world you
chores
live
or
in?
duties you have to do. Instead, it's framed as the natural, authentic expression of who you now are. It's not about trying to follow a rule book, it's about letting your true life and calling just bubble up to the surface.
And that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. How might your daily perspective, your thoughts, your actions, your reactions, change if you stopped seeing yourself as a forgiven sinner, just a patched-up version of your old self, and started seeing yourself as a brand new creature? Really something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this one.